The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Fendry Hart, defense attorney extraordinaire, adjusted his tie for what felt like the 100th time, though he knew it didn't matter. His composure was his armor, perfectly tailored just like his suit. Yet beneath the polished exterior, a storm of nerves churned. He didn't expect it to hit him today of all days. Opposite him, Jason Cole strode in, every inch the confident prosecutor. Dark hair slicked back, sharp suit hugging a lean, athletic frame, and eyes that could slice through the thickest of legal arguments, or a person's defenses. Fendry had met him once before in court, and the memory lingered like a ghost he both feared and craved. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen," Jason began, voice smooth, magnetic, confident. "We are here to uncover the truth, nothing less." Fendry watched him, noting the subtle smirk tugging at the corner of his lips as he spoke. There was something dangerously alluring about Jason's confidence, a sharpness that matched his own in court, and yet, something softer flickered there occasionally, a glimpse of vulnerability that no one ever seemed to notice. The case was high profile, a corporate dispute with millions on the line. But for Fendry, it wasn't the stakes that made his chest tighten, it was Jason. They launched into the battle. Words clashed like swords, each trying to outmaneuver the other. Fendry's voice was steady, precise, cutting through the courtroom like a scalpel. Jason countered effortlessly, charming the jury with his wit and relentless drive. Every time their eyes met across the room, something electric pulsed between them. A spark. A warning. A promise of things neither of them dared name aloud. During a recess, Fendry retreated to the hallway, needing a moment to breathe. He leaned against the cold marble wall, rubbing his temples, and didn't notice Jason approaching until he cleared his throat. "You're distracting," Jason said lightly, though his eyes lingered on Fendry longer than necessary. Fendry blinked. "Excuse me? You're distracting. It's hard to focus when you're always so damn precise. So sharp." Jason's lips quirked with that infuriating smirk, but there was something softer in his gaze, a vulnerability he didn't expect. Fendry felt heat creep up his neck. "I could say the same about you." Jason laughed, low and teasing, and it echoed in the empty hallway. "Touché, Fendry. You always have a retort, don't you?" Their hands brushed as they exchanged case files just for a second, but that second lingered in the air between them, heavy with unspoken tension. Fendry wanted to pull away, to retreat into his professional shell, but a part of him, the part he didn't admit even to himself, wanted to hold that contact, wanted it to last a little longer. The courtroom reconvened and the battle continued, words clashing and tempers flaring. Yet beneath the legal jousting, an unspoken game played out. Fendry caught Jason watching him more than necessary, and Jason caught Fendry glancing at him in fleeting, subtle moments. Both knew the risk, the danger of giving in to feelings in a world where reputation mattered, but the pull was undeniable. After the session ended, they found themselves alone in the office. Fendry was organizing case files when Jason entered, leaning casually against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You're going to ruin me, you know," Jason said, voice teasing but with an edge of seriousness that made Fendry pause. "Me? I'm just defending my client," Fendry replied, keeping his tone neutral, though his pulse betrayed him. Jason stepped closer, deliberately, their proximity forcing Fendry to notice the faint scent of his cologne, woodsy, sharp, intoxicating. Fendry swallowed hard. "You always have to play the provocateur, don't you?" Jason's smirk softened, his gaze dropping just slightly, enough to make Fendry's chest tighten. "Maybe. Or maybe I just can't help myself when I'm around you." Heat flared in Fendry's chest. He tried to focus on the papers, on the legal arguments, on anything but the slow, deliberate way Jason was closing the distance. Yet his defenses were faltering as they always did around him. A sudden gust of wind from the slightly ajar window rustled the papers, and Fendry's hand shot out to steady them. Jason's hand brushed his again, this time intentionally, lingering on the back of Fendry's hand. The contact sent a jolt straight to Fendry's core, leaving him breathless. "Careful," Fendry murmured, trying to keep his composure. Jason's lips curled into a teasing, almost predatory smile. "Or, maybe I want you to notice." Fendry's heart thudded painfully, a mixture of desire and fear. He wanted to say something, to warn him, to pull away, but the words stuck in his throat. The tension between them was a live wire, dangerous and thrilling all at once. The next few days were a whirlwind of court battles, late-night meetings, and stolen moments. Every time they passed in the office, every time they reached for the same file, every fleeting touch sent shivers down Fendry's spine. He knew he was falling, and he knew Jason was too, though both pretended to remain professional in the daylight. One night, after the courtroom had emptied and the office was silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights, Fendry found himself alone with Jason once again. Their conversation had started innocently enough, discussing case strategy, but quickly spiraled into a game of teasing and subtle admissions. Jason stepped closer until there was barely a breath between them. "You know," he said softly, almost vulnerable, "I think we're guilty of more than just courtroom rivalry." Fendry's pulse raced. "And what exactly are we guilty of?" Jason's hand reached up to brush a stray lock of hair from Fendry's forehead, a gesture intimate in its tenderness. "Falling for each other?" he whispered. Fendry's breath caught. He wanted to protest, to remind himself of the dangers, the consequences, but all rational thought fled in the heat of the moment. He leaned slightly into the touch, heart hammering, and dared to meet Jason's gaze fully for the first time outside the courtroom's war zone. For a long moment they simply stared, the air thick with anticipation, desire, and the thrill of the forbidden. Finally Jason's lips hovered near Fendry's ear. "And I'd plead guilty without hesitation." Fendry shivered, a delicious mix of fear and longing coursing through him. The line between professional and personal, between reason and desire, blurred entirely. That night, in the empty office, the only crime they were committing was giving in to the pull neither could deny. As Fendry left the office that night, heart still racing, he couldn't help but think. Maybe some cases weren't meant to be won in court. Some battles, some guilty pleasures, were meant to be felt, savored, and indulged. And with Jason, Fendry knew he was ready to face the verdict. The office was quiet, save for the soft hum of the late-night city filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Fendry sat at his desk, papers spread before him in a meticulous, almost obsessive pattern. His pen hovered over a legal brief, but his mind wasn't on the case. It was on Jason. Jason, who had that infuriating ability to make every part of Fendry's carefully constructed composure crumble with a single glance. "Still at it?" Jason's voice cut through the silence, smooth as silk, yet laced with amusement. He leaned against the doorway, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a cup of coffee. The faint aroma of espresso mixed with his cologne, intoxicatingly sharp, made Fendry's stomach twist. "Don't distract me," Fendry replied, trying to sound firm, but his voice betrayed a flicker of hesitation. Jason sauntered closer, deliberately slow, a smirk tugging at his lips. "I'm not distracting. I'm observing. Learning from the master." He set the coffee down on Fendry's desk, close enough that their arms brushed. The contact was brief, but it sent a jolt straight to Fendry's chest. "I don't need lessons," Fendry muttered, attempting to redirect his thoughts to the mountain of case files before him. Jason crouched slightly to pick up a paper Fendry had dropped, and for a heartbeat, their eyes met. There was something in Jason's gaze, hungry, teasing, vulnerable all at once, that made Fendry's carefully fortified walls tremble. "You know," Jason said, voice low, almost a whisper, "if you keep staring at me like that, people might start thinking we're more than colleagues." Fendry's heart thudded painfully. "We're not." He forced himself to look away, though the pull was magnetic. Jason leaned closer, shoulder brushing against Fendry's. "But what if we could be?" The words were like fire. Fendry's rational mind screamed against the attraction, but his body, his instincts, betrayed him. Every nerve ending seemed alive, humming with anticipation. Hours passed like this, a mixture of legal strategy and unspoken tension. At one point, Jason rested his hand on Fendry's, ostensibly to point at a section of the brief. Fendry didn't pull away. How could he? There was a heat there that made it impossible. Finally, the conversation shifted to personal territory, a dangerous move, but neither could resist. "Why do you work so hard?" Jason asked softly, genuinely curious. "You throw yourself into cases like nothing else matters." Fendry hesitated, then sighed. "Because it's easier to control outcomes here than it is out there," he said, gesturing vaguely, meaning his past, his heartbreak, the walls he'd built around his heart. Jason nodded, his expression softening. "I get that. I've got my own walls too, but sometimes the risk is worth it." His eyes lingered on Fendry, searching, as though daring him to cross the line he'd never dared approach. The tension became unbearable. Fendry's chest tightened as Jason leaned just slightly closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating off him. And then, before Fendry could stop himself, Jason's lips were on his. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't desperate. It was deliberate, testing, tender. Fendry froze for a heartbeat, caught between instinct and reason, and then he let go. He kissed back, cautiously at first, then with growing intensity, letting the night swallow the fears that had chained him. When they finally pulled away, both were breathless, foreheads resting together. We shouldn't, we can't, Fendry murmured, guilt and desire clashing in his chest. Jason smiled faintly, brushing a thumb across Fendry's cheek. Or maybe we can. Maybe this is something worth the risk. The hours that followed were a delicate dance. Glances that lingered, touches that lingered longer, whispered conversations that skirted the line between professional and personal. They shared coffee in silence, hands brushing over papers, the thrill of being so close, yet so exposed. At one point, Jason's hand found the small of Fendry's back, drawing him in. You feel it too, he murmured, voice barely audible. You can't pretend you don't. Fendry's heart raced, a mix of exhilaration and fear. He didn't answer verbally. He didn't need to. His actions spoke for him as he leaned into Jason's warmth, letting the moment wash over him. When the clock finally struck midnight, reality intruded. The office, once a sanctuary for their closeness, felt suddenly like a cage. They stood apart, hands reluctantly dropping to their sides. We should go, Fendry said, voice tight. Jason nodded, though his eyes never left Fendry's. Yeah. But tomorrow, same time? Fendry's lips twitched in the faintest of smiles, a dangerous, thrilling curve that mirrored the tension in his chest. Same time. As Fendry walked to his car, the cool night air doing nothing to calm the fire inside him, he realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Jason had breached his defenses and he hadn't fought back, not really. And for the first time in a long time, Fendry didn't want to. He knew the coming days would be complicated, rumors, professional rivalry, ethical boundaries, but the pull between them was undeniable. They were two people perfectly matched in intellect, in desire, and now in a dangerous, thrilling attraction that neither could resist. And as Fendry drove home, a single thought echoed in his mind. Some cases weren't meant to be fought in court. Some battles were fought in the heart. And he was ready to lose himself completely. The office was unusually quiet for mid-morning. Fendry scrolled through his emails trying to focus, but his mind kept wandering to Jason, the way his fingers lingered on his hand last night, the brush of lips that had left him restless all night. He pushed the memory away, blaming himself for indulging in thoughts so reckless. Then came the first whisper. You've been spending a lot of late nights together, a junior associate murmured as she passed Fendry's office, eyes darting nervously. People are noticing. Fendry's chest tightened. Rumors. Already. He hadn't even processed the depth of what he and Jason had shared, and now someone might be talking. He shook it off, returning to case files, determined not to let it get to him. But then his phone buzzed with a message from Jason. Lunch? Need to talk. Confidentially. Fendry felt a mix of relief and tension. He agreed immediately. The cafe was small, tucked away on a quiet street, perfect for secrecy. Jason arrived a few minutes late, dark eyes scanning for prying eyes before finally settling on Fendry. You look tense, Jason said softly, sliding into the seat across from him. Is it the office gossip? Fendry exhaled sharply. Partly. And partly everything else. Jason reached across the table, covering Fendry's hand with his own. Everything else? Fendry looked down at their intertwined fingers, the warmth and security of the touch almost dizzying. This. I don't know how we're supposed to navigate this. Between the cases, the office, the world. I've built walls for a reason. Jason's thumb traced gentle circles over the back of Fendry's hand. I know. And I don't want to push you. But I also can't pretend I don't feel this. Fendry's chest ached. The honesty, the raw emotion in Jason's voice, it made him feel vulnerable in a way he hadn't allowed himself in years. He wanted to speak, to confess that he felt the same, but fear tangled with desire. I can't let anyone know, Fendry whispered. Not yet. Jason nodded, eyes softening. Then we don't. But we also can't ignore it. The conversation hung in the air, unresolved yet charged. Fendry realized that this secret, this dangerous, thrilling secret, was already changing him. He wanted it. He wanted Jason. Their professional lives, however, refused to pause. A high-profile case pitted them against each other in the courtroom again, and the tension between them became electric. Every glance, every rebuttal, every lingering look at the jury bench carried double meaning. During a particularly heated exchange, Fendry caught Jason's gaze lingering on him. It wasn't accusation or challenge this time, it was desire, raw and unmasked. Fendry's pulse jumped, but he had to maintain composure. Professionalism was their shield. After court, the corridor outside their offices became a battleground of words and emotions. You were different today, Jason said quietly, leaning against the wall. More intense. More human. Fendry's eyebrows furrowed. I'm always intense. You just notice it differently now. Jason smiled, dangerous and teasing. I notice a lot of things now. The teasing edge carried tension that both thrilled and terrified Fendry. He wanted to challenge it, to assert control, but the longing that had been simmering under the surface for days was boiling over. You're impossible, Fendry muttered, a hint of a smile breaking through his serious facade. And you're infuriating, Jason countered, closing the distance between them. But that's what makes you irresistible. For a moment, time froze. Their proximity, the unspoken feelings, the hunger lingering in their gazes, it was all-consuming. Fendry wanted to reach out, to close the gap, to let go of reason entirely. But the world intervened. A junior attorney cleared his throat nearby, snapping Fendry back to reality. They stepped apart, the spell broken, leaving both of them aching with want and frustration. Back at the office, whispers continued. Fendry overheard colleagues speculating about their odd chemistry, and panic prickled at the edges of his control. He knew Jason felt it too, the risk, the thrill, the danger, but neither wanted to back down. That evening, Fendry lingered in the office longer than usual, pretending to work while thinking of Jason. When Jason finally arrived for a scheduled meeting, the tension between them was palpable. You stayed late, Jason said, walking up behind him, fingers brushing lightly against Fendry's shoulder. Fendry didn't answer. He couldn't. His body betrayed him, reacting to the smallest touch, the faintest whisper of closeness. Jason's lips brushed against Fendry's ear, soft and deliberate. Do you feel it too? Fendry's breath hitched. Yes, he admitted, barely above a whisper. I can't stop feeling it. Jason's response was immediate, pressing closer, capturing Fendry's lips in a kiss that was urgent, possessive and tender all at once. Fendry melted into the contact, letting go of caution, letting go of fear. This time there was no hesitation, no doubt. They both knew the stakes, but they also knew the pull was irresistible. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, foreheads resting together. We're playing with fire, Fendry murmured. Jason's lips curved into a soft, knowing smile. And yet, it feels worth it. They stayed like that, caught between desire and responsibility, their secret a fragile flame that could ignite or be extinguished at any moment. But for now, in the quiet of the office, it burned brightly. And both of them, despite the risks, wouldn't have it any other way. The courtroom was tense, thick with anticipation. Fendry adjusted his suit jacket, his heart hammering, not just from the stakes of the case but from Jason. They stood on opposite sides, yet again this time defending and prosecuting a complex corporate fraud case that had captured the media's attention. But today the case felt different. Every argument, every rebuttal, every glance shared across the room was infused with their private tension, emotions they could no longer hide. Their chemistry was palpable, and the jury noticed it too, though they couldn't place the source of the subtle electric current running between the two lawyers. Jason rose to speak first, commanding attention. Your Honor, this case is about truth. About responsibility. About holding those accountable who would deceive and manipulate. His eyes swept the courtroom before landing on Fendry's. For a brief moment they locked eyes and the world outside that gaze disappeared. Fendry's counterargument was precise, passionate and razor-sharp. Truth is not merely what is convenient to see, but what is evidenced beyond reasonable doubt. And we cannot let appearances overshadow reality. Their verbal duel was a dance, skillful, charged, exhilarating. Every word was a push and pull, a mixture of professional rivalry and unspoken desire. It wasn't just the case at stake anymore, it was them. Their emotions, their connection, their unspoken love. By midday the court recessed and the tension spilled over in the hallway. Fendry's pulse raced as Jason approached, close enough that he could feel his warmth, his presence like a magnet pulling him in. You're brilliant, Jason said quietly, voice low and intimate. Every time you speak, He stopped, exhaling, trying to steady himself. I can't. I feel too much. Fendry swallowed hard, emotions threatening to spill over. I feel the same. Every single time I'm near you, His words faltered, but his eyes spoke volumes, desire, fear, longing, and love all at once. Jason closed the distance, capturing Fendry's lips in a deep, urgent kiss. This time there were no interruptions, no half-measures. Their embrace was a release of everything held back. Months of tension, stolen glances, whispered confessions, and nights spent wondering if they were taking too great a risk. When they finally broke apart, They rested their foreheads together, breathing in sync. "We can't let anyone know." "Not yet," Fendry whispered. Jason nodded. "Not yet. But I don't care about the risk anymore. You're worth everything." The afternoon session resumed, but neither could focus entirely on the case. Their interactions were subtle but charged. A hand brushing against another, a look lingering just a fraction too long, a small smile exchanged under the courtroom's watchful eyes. Their secret was safe for now, and the thrill only made their connection stronger. Finally, the verdict was read. Their client's innocence was proven, and victory swept through the courtroom. They had done it, together, despite being on opposite sides, despite the tension and danger of exposure. Their skills, combined with their unspoken bond, had created an unstoppable force. Later, in the quiet of the office, the weight of the day finally lifted. Fendry leaned against the desk, eyes on Jason. "We did it." Jason smiled softly, walking closer. "Yes, together. And it felt different today. Like nothing else mattered except this moment." Fendry's heart swelled. He had spent years guarding himself, protecting his heart from vulnerability, from love. And now here was Jason, his rival, his confidant, his desire, standing before him. He realized that love wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, even if it carried risks. "I don't want to hide anymore," Fendry admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Jason's hands found Fendry's, holding them with a firmness that promised safety and devotion. "Then we won't. Not forever. We'll be careful, but we'll be together. That's what matters." They shared a long, lingering kiss, a seal of promises unspoken but understood. It was more than passion, it was love, acknowledgement, and surrender. Days later, they cautiously shared the news of their relationship with a few trusted colleagues. Reactions were mixed, but the people who mattered, the ones who respected them both, offered quiet congratulations and support. They navigated the delicate balance of professional respect and personal love with grace, proving that their bond didn't diminish their abilities, it enhanced them. That evening, Fendry and Jason stood together on the balcony of the office building, the city lights glittering like stars below. Jason's arm wrapped around Fendry's waist, pulling him close. "You know," Jason murmured, lips brushing Fendry's temple, "I never thought falling in love could feel like this, dangerous, thrilling, unstoppable." Fendry leaned into him, heart full. "I know. But I wouldn't change a thing. Not the tension, not the risk, not us." They stood there, hand in hand, two hearts intertwined despite the world's expectations, the courtroom battles, and the whispers of gossip. Together they had found something worth more than victory or accolades. They had found each other. And for Fendry and Jason, that was the only verdict that truly mattered.